First of all, make sure you got the right region, Contra Costa, because San Ramon is in Contra Costa. So all I need to do is just punch in the address, which is this address right here, and then click search. And right away I got the property here. And this is the owner's name. TE stands for trustee, so I know it's a trust. Okay. However, to get the full name for the trust, it's better to get a copy of the grant deed. Usually it might be known as so-and-so family trust, U/A, that stands for under agreement, dated, U/A dated, and then whatever the date the trust was set up. That's how we identify the trust. So in this case, I happen to know the name of the trust, but if I don't know the name of the trust, it's hard for me to tell what the name of the trust is. So despite real list record, you still need to contact the seller to get the proper name for the seller. But if it's an LLC, most likely it will show the correct name for the LLC. Then you simply just copy from here. If it's an individual, sometimes couple, you copy the owner's names here. If there's more than one owner, sometimes you may have 3 or more owners. If you have 3 or more, it's possible the real estate tax record doesn't show all the names of the property owners. In this case, you probably need to know how to get the grant deed that shows the owner's names. You can either do that by calling Lucy Gresbo if you're in Northern California. If you're in Southern California, I usually work with Annie Fan. You get the document that shows all the property owners' names, and then. But if you only have one, owner, then it's easy. If you have more than one, then you need to check out the grant deed, figure it out. I don't know who's making this noise. Wherever you are, please turn off your so I'm not hearing you. Okay. Okay, good. Quiet now. That is just to figure out what you're going to put as the seller. Like this one, we definitely need to see the grant deed. If it's just a single owner, individual, you don't need the grant deed. If it's a couple, like husband and wife, you also do not need the grant deed. You can get all the information from here. If it's an LLC, you probably don't need the grant deed. If it's 3 or more, then you need to see the grant deed. Okay. So this one here, I happen to know the name of the trust. So I did this at home after I talked to a client. That's why this is typewritten. Usually when you go for a listing appointment, you can just write it in there. Commission rate, you can leave it blank and just write it in. These days I don't even care about safety period anymore. Safety period is rarely important anyway. I don't care about it anymore. So I talk to you. You want to put it there? That's fine too. This is where you put the split for the selling agent. Okay? And the rest is just blank, unless they are relevant. If they are relevant, please go ahead and put in the blanks. For example, let me just kind of briefly explain to you a few paragraphs here. Number 3A basically say your commission rate. It can also be a flat fee. If it's a flat fee, you select the flat fee option, which is this one. And 3A1 is just the legal language that says if the listing agent procures a ready, willing, and able buyer, then the seller is obligated to pay commission to the listing agent. 3A2 is about, I think, safety period. You can insert your safety period here if you want to have one. For me, I chose not to have one because I know I can sell it after the first open house. And number 3 is basic. Number 2 is about safety period. Number 3 is basically saying that if the seller decided to withdraw without the broker's consent or do something that makes the property unmarketable, what that means is, for example, in the middle of the listing period, husband and wife file for divorce. That makes paragraph 3 applies. And they may be liable to the listing broker if husband and wife file for divorce during the listing period, because when you're in a divorce, you cannot market the property. Now, if for whatever reason, during the transaction, the sale is prevented, the completion of the sale is prevented by someone to the transaction other than seller, such as in the case of a buyer, then the compensation which otherwise would have been earned under paragraph 3A shall be payable only if and when seller collects damages by suit, arbitration, blah, blah, blah. And then in an amount equal to the lesser of 1/2 of the damages covered or the above, recovered or the above compensation after first deducting title and escrow. What that means is, say for example, the party that caused the deal not to complete is the buyer. Buyer decided not to complete. Then buyer's liquidated damages may be what the seller is entitled to. So if the seller gets liquidated damages, the listing broker is entitled to 50% of that liquidated damages. On C, in addition, seller agrees to pay broker. Now, if there's any other payment other than just the commission, it should be filled out here. D1 basically say the broker is authorized to cooperate with and compensate other brokers through the MLS. And then the split is whatever they stated here of the purchase price. So in this case, when I put it on the MLS, it will be 2.5%. And then on E, it says seller hereby irrevocably assigns to broker the above compensation from brokers from seller's funds and proceeds in escrow. Broker may submit this agreement as instruction to compensate broker pursuant to paragraph 3A to any escrow regarding the property involving seller and a buyer, prospective buyer, or other transferee. What that means is if a seller is entitled to liquidated damages, this agreement entitles the broker to get 50%. So all the broker needs to do is to submit this agreement to the escrow and ask escrow to pay 50% of the liquidated damages to the broker. But in practice, you will need a court order because most escrow will not release the money without the buyer's signature. And then F basically say that the seller has not entered into any other listing agreement. And also the seller guarantees that the seller has no obligation to pay other broker regarding the property. Except for certain named individuals. This applies to situation where there was a prior listing and there was a buyer that has seen the property during the this safety period, and then the prior listing expired and you took over. Before that, you were given names by the seller, and the seller said that if these people submit offers, they are under the safety period of the previous agent. So if you deal with these individuals, you do not earn any commission. That's what number 3 says. On number 4, it can be spelled out in the listing agreement about what items are not to be sold. There also be items that are excluded, and what items are to be included. You have to spell out over here. Say, for example, furniture. And then the seller may have to identify which systems are owned and which are not. The least one are not owned, such as a solar system or alarm system. They could be leased. And then there are items that are lien, such as solar power system. Could be leased actually. Okay. This is where you put in the MLS that you belong to. So in this case, I put in Bay East Association MLS because I also belong to Bay East. Over here, it discusses in the box the benefits of using the MLS and the impact of opting out of the MLS. Presentation of all offers. Basically, here you're telling the seller how important is it to have the property on the MLS so that the seller can decide whether the property should be on the MLS or not. Essentially, to persuade the seller to put the property on the MLS. Because when the property is on the MLS, you get maximum exposure, or as much exposure as you can get. And any reduction in exposure of the property may lower the number of offers and then impact the sales price. See, that's why, you know, when you put a property on the market, the more offers you get, the higher sale price you get. Simple logic. You want to get as many offers in as possible. And the way to get as many offers as possible is to give the property the maximum exposure. You already get the exposure from the MLS. All the agents that belong to the MLS can see your listings. And then through the MLS, you get IDX, which gives you exposure in Zillow, Trulia, Redfin, and all the other hubs. So all you got to do is just put it on the MLS. Now, if you just put it on the MLS, that's good enough exposure for an agent that is not willing to work hard. But you can work harder and get even higher exposure for your listing. You can do your door knocking, because when you do your door knocking, you ask the owner, who do you know that would like to buy in this area? They know somebody, they can let their friends or relatives know about it. So door knocking will further increase the exposure. Also, you can buy phone numbers of local residents and then make phone calls to the local residents to find out who they know that would like to buy in this area. That also helps to get more buyers to see your property. Lastly, you can get more exposure by doing reverse prospecting. Reverse prospecting means there are agents that want to receive alerts from the MLS based on certain criteria. Let's say, for an example, an agent who has buyers that's looking in a certain area for 3 bedrooms and 2 baths and for certain price range. By setting up alerts, they can receive alerts on new listings. Now, if you do reverse prospecting, you'll be able to know the identities of these agents by using the reverse prospecting functionality. Then you'll be able to call up this agent, because you know what, by your being proactive, you can actually give this property even more exposure, because some agents will miss the alerts. If you don't call them, perhaps they didn't know you had a new listing. But if you do a reverse prospecting, you can get the names of these agents and call them. That also improves the exposure to the property. Okay? You can certainly buy newspaper ads, but why bother? Because when you buy newspaper ads, the audience is kind of spread out. You don't know which kind of audience you're going to reach. But when you call agents from your reverse prospecting, you are focusing on agents that are actively looking for properties similar to yours. Same thing with doing door knocking. When you do door knocking, you can identify buyers that are looking for a certain type of property within your area. Now, this is talking about our obligation to submit all signed listings to MLS within 2 days. Okay? So pay attention to your local rule. So after you sign the listing, you're obligated to submit your listing to the MLS within 2 days. Certainly, the seller may elect to exclude the property from the MLS. Now, if it's the property that is to be excluded from the MLS, you check box here. But if it's only temporary delay, you do not check this box, because you're not exactly excluding. You'll just delay putting it on the MLS. MLS rules allow MLS data to be made available by the MLS to additional internet sites. That's exactly what I talked about. Property availability on the MLS, address on the MLS. Seller can instruct broker to have the MLS not display the property or the property address on the internet. Seller understands that either of these opts out would mean consumers searching for a listing on the internet may not see the property or property address in response to their search. That feature is available, but do you want the consumer to see the address or not see the address? That can be arranged. Feature opt-outs. So the seller can ask the broker to opt out. Comments and reviews. The ability to write comments and reviews about the property on those sites. So basically, you're letting the seller know that after the sale is over, people can write reviews about that property. Automated value, estimate of value. You know, sites like Redfin or Zillow will volunteer the estimated values, even if you did not ask for them. Seller's representations. So the seller represents that there is no notice of default, which means foreclosure. And the loan is not delinquent. There's no bankruptcy. There's no litigation, lawsuits about the property. There is no proposed special assessment affecting the property. If the seller is aware of these things, then the seller shall promptly notify the broker in writing. The broker's responsibility, on the other hand, will be to exercise effort and due diligence to accomplish the purpose of this agreement. And the seller authorizes the broker to order report and disclosure. Okay? Say, for example, there are certain things that we think is necessary to sell the property. We'll check them here. In this case, property inspection and HOA docs. Okay? Agency disclosure. Now, why I told you already why I wanted the property inspection. HOA docs, and advice on the HOA doc will be to do it as soon as your listing is signed. Don't wait. You don't know how long it's going to take to get HOA docs. Okay?
Hay đó. Cái chị đó mà hiểu rồi, khỏi là tặng người đó hả mày? Hay đó. Hay.
Okay. Anyway, I'll keep going. The rest is like photography. You want to immediately schedule a photographer.
Cái điểm mà ok hổ đó, hổ. Mình đặt cái điểm chung đó, hổ cái điểm chung. Hổ. Ok hổ.
Martin, right?
Hổ. Cái điểm này.
TM. If you don't shut up, next time you won't be invited. Now, let me talk about photography. The best time to do photography is after staging. The sequence is like this. When you get the listing, you definitely want to do a walkthrough. After the walkthrough, you make certain recommendations to the seller. Amongst the recommendation will be to decide who you're going to hire to do the repair work. It is probably better to discuss repair work until after you have done the inspection work. Okay? Once you've done the inspection work, then you know what needs to be repaired, so you can sign a contract with the handyman or with a contractor. and get the work done. Once that is done, next thing is staging. Once staging is done, next thing is photography. Once the photography is done, next thing is to put it on the MLS. And in the Northern California, you can actually do coming soon before it goes active. So, and before your first open house, you should probably be doing some door knocking, so you can things that you want to do to get maximum exposure. Door knocking, phone calling, reverse prospecting, all of those things have to occur before your first open house. If everything is timed perfectly, if you price your property perfectly in this market, I guarantee you, house will be gone after the first open house. And when you do your photography, there's no need to save on photography as it is very inexpensive. For $99, you can get professional quality photography. 16 photos, okay? Really, really nice looking photos. No need to do it on your own. It's got to be professional photography. As far as other types of marketing, but that's totally up to you, okay? Now the sign, if the seller does not want any sign, then you have to check this box. Otherwise, you're going to assume the seller wants the sign, okay? All right? If the seller does not want photography, you check here. Most of the time, I just ignore this unless I hear otherwise from the seller. Okay. Most of the time, we just assume standard way of doing things. And then these are the additional terms. Now, when you have co-listing agents, you want to let the seller know who are the agents. So in this case, myself and Martin will be the co-listing representatives from Centermac Realty Inc. for this property. We will pay for the professional staging for the property in this case, okay? And because we involve trust, this box should be checked for representative capacity. And the rest are just standard forms. You just go and fill it out, okay? So we're finished with this form. We did representative capacity signature disclosure last week, so we're not going to do it again. And then this one is what you need to be aware of, which is you have to fill out this form if your property cannot be listed within 48 hours. So we schedule for April 16. We'll exclude until April 16. After April 16, we'll put it on the MLS, okay? There are three options. You can do it in terms of calendar days. You can do it in terms of date. Or if the seller never wants doesn't want the MLS, the property to be on the MLS ever, you select the third box. Okay. All right. So these are the three forms, and that's pretty much sums up what I'm going to discuss for residential listing agreement. Okay. Thank you for attending.